And Dagon. Because everybody thinks of Delilah when they think of Samson. And I really think that the whole point of the Samson and Delilah story is to get us to the story of Dagon, which is just one daggone bad guy. You knew it was coming, didn't you? I did not want to disappoint you. But no, he's the God that the true God is taking on with this whole thing. And I really believed that I could have gotten there tonight. But here's the issue. I started, doing a quick version of the beginning of chapter 16 and realized there's just so much good stuff that if I hurry through it to get to the end where it talks about Dagon, really interesting stuff there. But the problem is they're two completely different topics. We're dealing with the practical stuff that he's going through day to day, and then all of a sudden we switch gears to the spiritual war. And I just felt like to give you both in 1 week is just turning on the fire hose and saying, take a sip. And so I'm slowing down, and today will be Samson and Delilah, and next week will be Samson and Dagon. Okay? And so my timing, I have no idea how long this is actually going to be because I was trying to hurry through it, then decided not to, and so now we'll just see how long this takes. We should have plenty of time. Let me turn on my clock so that I can pay attention to that. Now, I'll watch that, not you guys. Deal? And nobody wants to make that deal with me. How come? All right. Last week I ended with a question. Chapter 15, verse 20. Samson led Israel for 20 years in the days of the Philistines. Isn't that how they usually end? When they've given the story of a judge, then it says, and he judged for 20 years, or whatever long. Well, then it does that at the end of 15. Then in 16 it goes, one day Samson, and it goes on and talks about Gaza, which the same Gaza that is in the news today, dealing with all that. And it tells a story. And I think not because we needed to know about Delilah, but because we needed to know about Dagon. That's why I think that's the focus. But at the end of the story of Dagon, in chapter 16, the last verse, ends with, he had led Israel 20 years. So it finished it, and then came back with a epilogue. Is that what do you call it? Is that the right? And then ended it again. And I'm just curious. I have some reasons why I think he did that. I'm just curious if you guys have any thoughts as to why the author of Judges did that.
Again, in Hebrew, their thinking is not consecutive.
Right. It's not chronological always. It's not linear. It's not from here to there. So our mind is don't end it until it's over. But they would. Go ahead, Jeff.
They also mentioned it at the end of the chapter 16.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They ended it in 15.
In 15
and then they ended it again in 16.
I think there was so much that he wanted to explain about Samson and the steps that he took.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to me, it almost sounds like they wrote the Samson story, and then like a couple months later, they're like, oh,
we got to add that in.
yeah.
That's how we would do it.
I think maybe I don't know. It still doesn't go along with the idea that they're not chronological, but at the beginning when he married a woman, she wasn't godly.
Right.
He was young. Here he's older. and he's still involved with an ungodly, or involved again in with an ungodly
Yeah.
woman. And that seems to be the pattern for his life.
That's for sure. Scott?
In a way, it just reminds me, don't want to jump ahead, but it reminds me of like David. You know, he had the heart of God, but he still committed a sin. And it kind of, I feel like it does that. It's not the fact that they're restating the fact. I think it's important that they're stating the fact while adding this new information, saying during his 20 years, this is what happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that you're right on the point where it's making sure we know all these events took place during the 20 years. And I think one is, and this is my thought, is one is related to what it meant for Israel. Because he's supposed to be leading Israel. We're going to talk about the word led in just a moment. But he led Israel for 20 years. And the story is his relationship with Israel. You know, yes, it's about the Philistines, but where do the Israelites fit into that story? What'd they do? Who remembers?
They're following the Philistines too.
Yeah, they're following the Philistines. In fact, they turned Samson over to the Philistines. So it's like this story, the relation between governmentally, the earthly story of his leading had to do with the Philistines and with Israel, and it brings a close to that, and he led Israel for 20 years. Then it goes back and says, but this is an important, very important thing that we need to put in there. And so it tells the story, but to bring, I think they didn't want it to look like it was a continuation of the other story, so they brought it to an end. And 20 years, he led Israel. But now let me tell you something else. Like in their mind, it brings a close to that story and opens a new story. And I see them as two completely different things. And so that's just my thought. I could be wrong. But the word ruled there, I looked it up, and I'm probably not saying it right, but shafat, something like that.
Judge. That's
Is to the judged. And we know the word judge, but when it's in these verses, like at the end of verse 15, it says, and Samson, what's the word you have there in your Bible? Led. And the real word there is judged.
That's what King James has.
Judged, okay. But we got to look at it from their definition of judging, not just ours. When I think of a judge, I think of the black robe sitting behind the desk making rules. People come to them with questions and they make a ruling. That's not necessarily the case with the judges in the book of Judges. In fact, very often it just meant they were the warrior leader that delivered them from the enemy. And by being there, it kept the enemy at bay for such and such a time. Is there anywhere in any of the story of Samson that we see the first Israelite come to him and ask for advice, for an answer to a question, for direction? Did he lead them, follow me at all in this story?
no, they gave him up to the Philistines.
Exactly. They didn't follow him, they followed the enemy. And so when it says he judged, I think it simply means he protected, God had him there as a buffer between Israel and the Philistines for 20 years. To confront them, to be there. And so I just want to show it, we see it twice in NIV, and Samuel led Israel for 20 years. Yeah, he didn't lead them, but he was the judge. All right, so that's kind of just a review and catching us up from last week. Now we hit chapter 16 and Delilah. And I'm just going to tell you, the first woman we see in chapter 16 is not Delilah, because that's how Samson is. All right, verse 1 to 3. Let's start with that. One day Samson went to Gaza, where he saw a prostitute. He went in to spend the night with her. The people of Gaza were told, Samson is here. So did he sneak in there? If he did, he didn't do a good job sneaking, did he? It's like boldness to go into enemy territory, to be found going into a prostitute and not caring about that. So they surrounded the place and lay in wait for him all night at the city gate. Do you think Samson knew that he was in danger, or that there was attempted danger?
He's stuck.
Well, let's figure that out. They made no move during the night, saying, at dawn we'll kill him. But Samson lay there only until the middle of the night. Then he got up and took hold of the doors of the city gate, together with the 2 posts, and tore them loose. Wow. I mean, you couldn't do that with a battering ram. You know? He just ripped them off. And he lifted them to his shoulders and carried them to the top of the hill that faces Hebron.
What? 38 miles away.
38 miles?
Oh my goodness.
Bionic man.
First CrossFit right there.
Yeah.
And the Spirit of God didn't come on him.
Well, it didn't.
I mean, it doesn't
say.
Right. It doesn't say that the Spirit of God came on him. I think that there are times prior to this that we saw the Spirit of God came on him and he defeated the Philistines. But at the same time, I think the Spirit was constantly on him as a dedicated prophet, but even more intensely in those moments that were needed. The reason I say that is because of the rest of the story. He is constantly strong, and they can't do anything about it. And they want to know what the secret of his strength is. So he's always strong. I don't think he was just that buff, because as soon as the Spirit of the Lord left him, he was weak like everybody else. So I think there was a constant strength, and yet there was an additional empowerment for certain events to direct the attention towards the power giver, the Spirit. Does that make sense?
Also, Gaza is right next to the Mediterranean. It's a flat plain. So the hills of Hebron, you have to go east, go up the hills, and now he's facing, when he's at the top, he's facing Judah. The men of Judah who had, it's kind of like,
Look what I did.
you handed me over.
Yeah, look what I did to them. Yeah. So
The plan did not work.
right. Which is really interesting because I'm just going to say this now, and I was going to bring it out later, but and when I get there, I hope I'm not too redundant, but Samson was a lonely man. You think about it. Who did he have on his side? Who's a friend of Samson in the whole story?
Mom and Dad. Maybe Mom and Dad.
Maybe mom and dad, which he kept all his secrets from them.
That's not really a friend because he's not confiding in them.
That's exactly right. And
I think he tries to get people to like him.
no, he tries.
He tries to be popular.
He wants to be feared and respected, but he goes about it every time the wrong way. He wants companionship, so he goes find a prostitute. She's not going to love you. Right? And so this is some of the... Samson is a man driven by lust. We see that he's not afraid of the Philistines because I believe he knew when he went in there and went into the house, he knew they're going to try to kill me, but I don't care, they can't.
Yeah.
All right, so he's not afraid of the Philistines. And then he thought, I'll just go out now and tear down their gates to let them know I was nice to them because I could have killed them. And he tears down the gates to put fear in their hearts. You were waiting for me, look what I did to you.
You're under siege. You shut the gates. Take your gates away.
Yeah, like
Can't
you
protect your town.
you want to get mad at me, and now if I can break out when your gates are locked, I can break in when I want to.
Right.
I mean, it's a statement of, you wanted me dead, you better fear me. The arrogance that he's got. This also tells me, as we do hermeneutics, we observe these things and we start to ask questions, and what was it like for him? And then we look for principles that transcend. And the principle that's jumping out at me is that Samson was using the gift that God gave him for personal benefit rather than the will of God. Who gave him his strength? And what did he use that strength for that evening?
Go sleep with a lady and then tear off the...
To protect himself during a night with a prostitute.
And yet God
I know.
uses
I know.
even that.
Even that, he uses him and puts him in the faith chapter. God is God. And do we ever take the gifts and talents and resources that God has given us and use them for wrong things instead of right things? What generation doesn't do that? You see the principle there? Can God forgive him? Yep. Is he going to suffer along the way because of it? Yep. And my goal is not just to help you find forgiveness, but to avoid the need of it. That's the way I preach. I love you enough that if we can avoid needing to seek forgiveness because we avoided the sin, isn't that better? I mean, it does feel good to be forgiven, but it feels a whole lot more to be blessed for the right thing. So that's what we want to pursue.
And it also, it's not just about your blessing, because I'm literally watching a thing play out right now, and how it affects the generations.
Yeah.
Like the generation, yes, God will forgive you, but sometimes there's a price with that being undone.
Yeah. That yes. And I don't want to get into examples. Right now I have some too, but it's just, look, it never pays to sin. Even if you can recover, and even if you can be forgiven, and even if you enter heaven, that's great. God's mercy is there for that. But I don't want to leave a worse world because I had to be forgiven. I'd rather be forgiven where I failed, but really I want to leave the world better than I came into it.
Well, I think about the fact that, the Israelites were God's chosen people, and God used, or their purpose was to demonstrate to the people around them who God was. We don't see Samson doing that in any way. In all of his exploits, never is God given credit.
Yeah.
And think about, what a gift that would have been for him to have used his gift to honor. And so, for the Philistines to be able to, give up their gods because they realized, okay, your God can equip you to do this.
Right.
The light that could have been shined rather than it just being that person.
Exactly. We back up, and even Gideon, we're kind of disappointed in, right? When's the last one we go, ooh, now there's a guy? Joshua. Imagine if Samson had said, I want to be like Joshua. What he could have done with Israel. All right, let's keep moving on what did happen, not on what we wish happened. Let's read verses 4. How far do I want to go with this one? Well, I'm going to break this down into short pieces. 4 and 5, it's the bribe. Here we go. Wait, did I read all 3? Yeah. Verse 4. Sometime later, he fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. It's at least the third woman we know of. The rulers of the Philistines went to her and said, "See if you can lure him into showing you the secret of his great strength and how we can overpower him, so we may tie him up and subdue him. Each one of us," and I don't know how many there were, "will give you 1,100 shekels of silver." That's more than they bought Jesus for, you understand? A lot more.
It says about 13 kilos.
It's a price of 275 slaves. One
One of them.
One of them.
And
I don't know how many of them said that.
I have no idea how many they were, but they were ready to pay big for him.
The note says five rulers.
Okay, could be. Even at 5, that's a lot.
Yeah, back in chapter 3,
Okay.
verse 3, it said that there were 5. 5 rulers of the Philistines.
This is where I noticed Samson, I'll comment on it again. He was in constant pursuit of love but couldn't find it. And again, he fails at love because there's just no one mentioned in a person that anywhere in here that ever loved Samson except his parents at the beginning. And yet he keeps trying it the same way. The whole story of Samson started off when he was going down to Timnah, where he shouldn't be, among the Philistines, and the parents were like, "Why are you going down there? You shouldn't go down there." How'd that work out for him? Not so well. So let's just go back down into the Philistine territory and look for a prostitute, because that'll work, right?
Well, it says he fell in love with her. It's
Well-
nothing about what she felt. And that's the same thing what happened with his first wife. He liked her in the field, and he said to his parents, "Go get her for me."
And exactly right. Third time, the same thing. Looking for a Philistine woman and saying, maybe this one will work out. Celebrate Recovery, we have a term when you keep doing the same thing but expect different results.
Insanity.
It's called insanity. If you think I tried it, it didn't work, I tried it, it didn't work, I tried it, it didn't work, don't try it again. Do something different. And that's kind of what he's in. So here's the setup. Delilah's set up to catch him. Verse 6, I'm going to read 6 to 10. So Delilah said to Samson, "Tell me the secret of your great strength and how you can be tied up and subdued."
How sneaky.
Real Sharpie.
Ring, ring. Hello? Yes, I don't want to give you my name because I'm going to break into your house today. Before you get upset, tell me where the key is. Yeah, what's the combination to the code? Yeah. The safe is where? Okay, got it. Good. Why don't you go in the back bedroom on the left so we'll stay out of your way? Yep, gotcha. Bye. Like, who would be that stupid?
It was probably, you're saying it wrong. It is probably, "Tell me the secret." You know?
Okay, Delilah.
That's a woman's interpretation.
I know. Well, she's probably right.
Well, and even falling for it the first time because he's just, even the first time's not as bad.
Right.
He thinks, oh, she loves me, I love her, she does, never mind.
No, now I want to hear what you were going to say.
But
It's the whole thing, like, he thought, she loves me, so she's not she's
he,
not gonna do anything, so I'm gonna prove my strength to her.
yeah,
Once, always twice.
yeah.
That's why, the first time, but the fact that he keeps telling her is what has.
That's the one that kills me.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like the first time around, put her in her place, let her know. Yeah, when they all come in and they get beaten, it's like, he's expecting her to learn from her mistakes, which he has never done.
Right.
Here's another woman that nags him, and he gives
Yeah,
in.
he's another heifer.
There they are messing with his heifer again.
He knows how to pick those heifers.
Oh my goodness.
Plowing with my heifer.
You're plowing with my heifer. Which,
If you loved me.
if you love me, I won't go there.
You already went there.
Okay, you good. I won't go there again. Where did I leave off? 6. So Delilah said to Samson, "Tell me the secret of your great strength and how you can be tied up and subdued." And Samson answered her, "If anyone ties me with 7 fresh bowstrings," don't tell anybody. I wonder what's going through his mind as he's lying to his wife.
Why is he lying to her?
Well, because he doesn't trust her, which is a horrible basis for relationship.
And he has reason to.
He trusts her to be bad.
Does it ever say it's his wife?
No.
That's a good point. I don't know that they ever did get married. That's a good point.
It doesn't.
But with his girl, he loved her, and there he is with her.
But notice how he said 7. He's mixing in a little bit related to the truth in there. Because he has 7 braids.
Yeah, it could be. He's getting too close, if you ask me. Anyone ties me with 7 fresh bowstrings that have not been dried, I'll become as weak as any other man. Then the rulers of the Philistines brought her 7 fresh bowstrings that had not been dried, and she tied him with them. Who did the tying?
She did, I don't get that. Why would anybody trust a woman to tie this great big spout?
Well, I think he's sleeping, but I don't know. He's sleeping later, and the other ones I just always assumed he was sleeping because then she runs in and it seems like she's waking him up. Oh no, the Philistines are upon us, so. And she tied him with them. Verse 9, with men hidden in the room, she called to him, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." But he snapped the bowstrings as easily as a piece of string snaps when it comes close to a flame. How easy is that? Just falls apart. So the secret of his strength was not discovered. Then Delilah said to Samson, "You have made a fool of me." I really want us to think about this for a little bit. You lied to me. Come now, tell me how you can be tied. Let's skip how ridiculous this sounds for a moment, because I believe this is a tactic of the devil, and he still uses it, and I see it in action today. What is actually going on here? I mean, let's start back on this whole situation for a minute. He gives a fake answer, right? Why?
Because he doesn't trust her. He trusts her to testing. He trusts her to not do the right thing.
But notice he never does tell her, though, not to tell anyone a secret, though, either. It's not written that he ever told her, "I'll tell you, but you can't tell anyone."
Yeah.
So, was he showboating again?
I think he knew how strong he was and had faith in himself.
Mm-hmm.
Or did he want to get caught?
Did he want to get caught thinking, my strength is mine? That even if the Spirit of the Lord isn't on me, I can beat these guys. He gave a fake answer to see what happens. I can see a test there, because he never trusted anyone. I don't think he even trusted his parents. He certainly didn't trust his fellow Israelites. Even when he went to them and they said, all right, we just want to turn you over to the Philistines. He said, okay, but just promise me this one thing. Promise me that you won't kill me. You'll turn me over to them. It's like he wasn't even sure that they were going to keep their word on that. He never trusted anyone.
He's got personal relationship problems with everybody.
That's my point. Like, he had nobody. What a miserable life he led, but it didn't have to be that way. I think he could have done things differently. In verse 6, I think it's a two-part question. Tell me the secret of your great strength and how you can be tied up and subdued. I can understand the first part, like coming from a fiance, wife, whatever their relationship is. He loves her, they're together. And for her to say, so what is the secret of your strength? That could be a question done in a healthy way. And he could have said, not my hair, but my God is the secret of my strength. The Spirit of God comes on me because I've been dedicated to Him. And this is not my strength, it's His strength. He's the secret of my strength. First part of the question is almost harmless and even gives room for a positive answer. It's the second part that doesn't hide her motives any longer. How can you be subdued? It's not, I want to know the secret of your strength because I also want to be strong. It's, I want to know the secret of your strength to bring you down so that I feel stronger. You ever see that in this world? She's basically asking, what do my fellow countrymen have to do to kill you? Well, nobody in their right mind would answer it. Unless you're going to give a fake answer just to see if your hunch is right. But this is also just like the devil. The devil is a master accuser. And even when we do right, the devil knows how to accuse us to make us feel guilty. His number one job is to make you feel guilty, but don't make anybody else feel guilty. How do we see that? Who's the guilty one here? The wife who tried to commit murder against, or girlfriend or whatever. I'm going to keep saying wife out of habit, but I think you're right. It doesn't say they ever got married. I don't think they were. But who's more guilty? The one who lied about how to kill him, or the one who tried to kill him? And yet she says, how dare you lie? What's wrong with you?
I was going to kill you.
How can I kill you if you tell me the truth? But somehow makes him feel bad about what he did in protecting himself from the Philistines.
You don't love me.
I'll tell you, if love is based on that,
Wow.
they are in trouble already.
There's a lot of relationships like that too.
I was thinking, I've seen so many, messed up relationships where they literally live in that manipulation.
Yes, that manipulation is solid, and people will fall for it. But I was doing, in this case, he's so far out of the right that it's even hard to put it in that position. But if you take the principle that's happening, you can be a lot more in the right. Maybe you're trying to do the right thing and maybe missed something, didn't do it the best way, but you're trying. And people are going to come down on you. Or you did it the right way and people hate it. And they will come at you. I wrote this down just thinking it through. When others accuse you, and you really feel that accusation, you all know what I'm talking about. You've all felt it at one time or another. Be careful they aren't doing it to weaken your faith. That's kind of a test. Look and say, why are they accusing me? Are they really Is it because I was wrong, or are they trying to weaken my faith? Evaluate why it's happening, not just the merit of the argument, but what is going on here? Why is this happening? I wrote also down, you do need to listen because not in his situation, but just thinking this through, there are times people accuse us, and we need to listen to evaluate if they're right. But we evaluate it based on what God wants of us, not on what that person wants of us. And Samson didn't do that. If he would have done that, if he would have got right there and said, okay, I see what they want from me, but I know what God wants from me. I'm dedicated to Him. That means I need to make a decision for what God wants, not for what she wants. And I understand, but she was this nagging, clanging cymbal gong in his ears to where he finally gave in. But being not married to her, you know what he should have done? Hit the road, Jack. Should never have been there to begin with. Nah, I know. Sorry. All right. Where am I at now?
11.
Verse 11. He said, if anyone ties me securely with new ropes that have never been used, I'll become as weak as any other man. So Delilah took new ropes and tied him with them. Then the men hidden in the room, she called to him, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. But he snapped the ropes off his arms as if they were threads. Delilah then said to Samson, all this time you have been making a fool of me. Who's been making a fool of who?
They're both making fools of themselves.
And they're doing a good job, and they're both right. Now, tell me how you can be tied. I cannot think of any reason other than wanting to die that he would tell her. I'm just done. I'm just done. I'm tired of this battle, tired of this fight. I really don't know what he was thinking.
But the only way for her to think you're making a fool of me is if she's just basically declaring that she told the Philistines what he told her. Because if it wasn't, if she hadn't relayed the information as truth and it turned out to be a lie, then she wouldn't have been made a fool of.
Right.
So
well, she's
you're making a fool of
it's
me.
obvious.
She's like, I told them,
And you made a fool of me
Yeah.
because they can't kill you.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Mom, do you think he knew that if he had his hair cut off?
That's a really good question. We're going to get to that in just a minute. Thank you for bringing that up. I think it's a very valid question. I think he is beginning to feel like the strength is his to yield the way he wants.
And I wonder what happened to those Philistines that were hiding in the room that came out when he snapped.
yeah.
They probably dove out the window. You know, like, whoa, we're out of here. Because you wouldn't want to take him on. If he broke those ropes.
And the other part of it is this is the second time that he's been tied with new ropes.
Right.
By her.
Well, no.
No, the first one was by the Israelites. He had the Israelites, he said, tie me with new ropes and you'll be safe. And so they delivered him in new ropes, and then he gets to the Philistines, goes, and tears them up. This is the second time he's been bound. First time was with the weavers, and now with the new ropes. It's a different one. And we're about to see a third one that's still a lie. Let's look at that, and then we'll talk about it for a minute. Verse 14, is that where I'm at? No.
13.
Yes.
13. Delilah said to Samson, all this time you've been making a fool of me and lying to me. Tell me how you can be tied. And he replied, if you weave the 7 braids of my head into the fabric on the loom and tighten it with the pin. Can you imagine that?
That would hurt so much.
Can you? That would hurt. And can you imagine sleeping through that?
No, he's a heavy sleeper.
I know. He must be drunk,
Probably.
even though he's not supposed to have any strong drink. Which makes me wonder, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm about to answer Jeff's question,
If he
but
was drunk though, wouldn't that have taken away his strength though?
and that's
So on that first time, whenever she did this with his hair,
hang into that thought for a minute, because I think it goes along with what Jeff is asking, is where's his strength? Is it in his hair? Where's it coming from? Because he says it's in his hair. All right, let me just jump to this for a little bit. We know he says it's in his hair, but is it?
No, that's just a visual.
No, because so is it in the obedience to the Nazirite laws? How many say yes? How many say no? Thank you. I don't think it is. If it was, what would have happened when he ate the honey out of the lion? Or when he killed 3,000 men, he's not supposed to touch a dead body.
We left them mostly dead.
Mostly dead.
When you hit them, they were alive.
Yeah, they died on their way down. But was he in the presence of the dead? You know, yeah. And he, when he went to Timnah, it makes it clear that he was going to the vineyards. What was he not supposed to drink? Any fruit of the vine. Not just wine. It was any fruit of the vine, not even raisins, no grapes, and he goes to the vineyard. He's not supposed to have wine, but he probably was by the party he had with the companions. Like, I don't think his strength was in his obedience. I don't think that he lost his strength because his hair was cut short.
Do you think it could have been because that was the last vow?
That's strong.
He'd broken all the other ones. The hair was the only thing remaining.
It could be. It could be. But I think it's more this.
Verse 20, he did not know that the Lord had left him.
Yes, so it's when the Spirit of the Lord leaves him, he can't tell the difference. And that's one of the things that I'm glad we said it now, because we're not going to get to. How about this? He still recognized that he was dedicated to the Lord, and even tells her, it's my hair because it's a sign of my dedication to the Lord. And when he gave that up, he was more dedicated to her than to the Lord. Mm-hmm. When he says, all right, you're not dedicated to me at all anymore, you're choosing to be dedicated to her.
I'm out of here.
You've given up the dedication. And so he says, hands off. And by the way, we're talking about being used. We're talking about filling. We're not talking about salvation here. Is Samson in heaven? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Did he make a mistake? Yeah. Is he going to pay for it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But is he going to go to heaven? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Does God forgive him and still use him at the end? Mm-hmm. Yeah. One last time. So that's where I think his strength, I guess it's good we did it that way. Now as we read it, we'll see his own misunderstanding of where his strength came from. And so kind of watch for that as I read through this now to see what his thinking was, what their thinking was, and what we know to be the truth. Verse 15? Then she said to him, how can you say, I love you when you won't confide in me? Oh, by the way, this whole how can you say you love me if you won't, and then finish the sentence, drives me nuts. It's this, but if you really love me, wouldn't you want me to be happy? Even if it makes you miserable to make me happy, you should make me happy because that's love. All right, well, if you want me to be miserable to make you happy, then you don't want me to be happy. Do you love me? How dare you ask that?
Every time we hear it in a movie or TV show, we go, oh.
But yet, how often is it used?
Almost every movie or TV show.
You know why? Because it's heavy in society. All right, and we got to stop this. All right. How can you say I love you when you won't confide in me? This is the third time I've tried to kill you. I'm sorry. The third time you have made a fool of me and haven't told me the secret of your great strength. With such nagging, she prodded him day after day until he was sick to death of it. He must have loved her a lot to stay there. And then said, all right, I undedicate myself to God, dedicate it to you. I give you what you're wanting instead of giving God what he wants. Big mistake. And I'm going to tell you something. When the devil starts tempting you to sin, he will tempt you and tempt you and tempt you and tempt you and tempt you until you say yes. Or until you flee him and make your no so confident that he has to give up. But if you're like, no, maybe, he's going to nag and nag and nag as long as he has a chance. He does not care if you get sick to death of it. Verse 17, so he told her everything. No razor has ever been used on my head, he said, because I have been a Nazarite dedicated to God from my mother's womb. That almost sounds like none of that was my choice. It's almost like this is what happened to me. Nobody else ever put a razor on my head because since I was in my mother's womb, I was dedicated to God to be this. It's almost like he's distancing himself from it. You guys get that same? That's why I'm thinking.
But it's the only thing about himself that he likes.
Yeah, is his own strength.
That's only a strength, not necessarily that he's a Nazarite.
Right. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as any other man. Now, in this case, he is willingly admitting, I will be disobeying God, breaking the sign of my Nazarite vow of being dedicated. He's messing with the dedication and admitting it and saying, therefore, I'll be weak. When Delilah saw that he had told her everything, no surprise, she sent word back to the rulers of the Philistines, come back one more time. Like, trust me, this is it. I got it this time. I know the other times we thought, we gave it a shot, but I'm telling you, I got it. I got it this time. Come back one more time. He has told me everything. So the rulers of the Philistines returned with the silver in their hands. And you'd think that Samson would have heard all this clanging of silver. After putting him to sleep on her lap, which makes me wonder what she fed him.
Oh, I don't think she was speaking.
Well, maybe not. I'm thinking, God, I'm drunk. But for him to sleep that well, just,
Well, they had sleeping drugs back then.
Yeah, they did. She put him to sleep.
I don't think that's what they were doing.
Well, I think there were other things involved, but this is a church. We're not going to talk about all that stuff. But I'm fully aware of Samson's needs. She called for someone to shave off the 7 braids of his hair, and so began to subdue him, and his strength left him. Then she called, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. He awoke from his sleep and thought, I'll go out as before and shake myself free. I think he had to realize that, 30, 40 years of hair, whatever, I don't know how old he was. You would notice if it's not there.
But if you're hungover, would you?
Surely.
You'd have to ask somebody else in here, not me. I don't know.
I'm just thinking, like, if you've ever seen someone who's come off of something, they're so disoriented, like if they've had a sleeping drug or anything, they are stumbling, like he's...
Yeah, it could be, but he was cognitive enough to know, I can do this in my strength. I can still take them out.
When he had a beard down to here, it's probably
Yeah.
also gone.
And so, I don't know what he knew I know what he thought. He thought he could still do this. I'll go out as before and shake myself free, but he did not know that the Lord had left him. Then the Philistines seized him. Can you imagine the moment he can't break free, the first time in his life he can't physically do something he wanted to do? It's like, uh-oh. Like, quick, get me out of here. And they start working on, they didn't put him to sleep and then surgically remove his eyes. Wide awake, they grabbed those things and pulled him out. I cannot imagine the pain, but along with the pain of this realization, I have been strong since all my life that I can remember, and now I have nothing. Can you imagine the hopelessness that he felt? Binding him with bronze shackles, they sent him to grinding grain in the prison. But the hair on his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. Now the rulers of the Philistines assembled to offer a great... Oh, that's next week. Daggone it. Do I want to say anything else here? No, I think we've kind of talked about that section. We all get it. But the Lord's not done with him. And it's 8:02. Any other comments, questions? Gila?
I have a question about the word subdue him in verse 19. The word shows afflict in, because it almost, maybe because of the word being afflict, maybe I'm not right about this, but I wonder if because of her nagging, she became, it's the opposite of the wife submitting to the husband. She made him submit.
Yeah.
And she took on the role that was not, if she
Hers,
was,
it was not hers to have.
her role wasn't the right position for her. And now that's what I see with subdue, but in Hebrew it doesn't say subdue. It says, I'm not sure. It says afflict.
Torment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Browbeat is
Weaken. Begins to weaken. That's what I have a note in mind, that the Hebrew is to weaken him through those actions. And see, that's what the devil does. You might be strong to fight something right now, but then he'll keep weakening you until that moment that you give in. And you need to learn to recognize the minute that Satan starts to weaken you, run the other direction. Run. Anything else? Yep. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day and thank you for your scriptures. Lord, I thank you for the example that Samson is for us, but especially that you still used him and in a great way, and in fact, use him to defeat. And I think that what this whole story is about is that you were not wanting Dagon to take credit for defeating Israel when it was really you letting Israel be disciplined. And so I pray that you help us to get a lot out of it next week. In Jesus' name, amen.